So, hi everyone, and welcome to the 19th episode of Leaders and Influencers. Today we have somebody very interesting, Mr. Santosh Kamane. He is a cybersecurity leader, CISO, and entrepreneur over 2 decades. And he also mentors aspiring cybersecurity leaders in information security and data privacy initiatives. So, Mr. Kamane, very warm welcome to our 19th episode. And we are like really glad to have you here. And I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting and intriguing session.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Amandeep. I'm happy to be part of this episode. Thank you.
So, Mr. Kamane, my first question to you is that as a cybersecurity expert, you have witnessed the evolution of digital threats over the years, right? So, could you share insights on the current emerging threats in cybersecurity and how businesses can actually adapt to stay protected against these evolving risks?
Definitely. I think I started my career back, in early 2000. So it's been a long
Mm-hmm.
journey. And
Mm-hmm.
cybersecurity back then was not really accepted as a separate, business vertical. Just
Mm-hmm.
like IT, sales, HR, they were all established verticals. But cybersecurity as an investment for business
Mm-hmm.
was fairly a new idea. Nobody wanted to invest into something, where they would not get return on investment. I mean, that was, very logical amongst organizations. And eventually, as the internet evolved, systems started talking to each other. Everything was connected over the internet. Net banking came, Web 2.0 kind of came into picture. And with that, from physical data, everything was, converted into digital
Mm-hmm.
mode. So this digital data needed to be protected because all this data
Mm-hmm.
was available 24 by 7. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
could access it. And just
Indeed.
like any other area, there were obviously actors with malicious intent.
Mm.
Because those with
Mm.
malicious intent, they realized that they could gain, they could have financial gains. They could harm the reputation of organizations. This could be used against, organizations or even nation,
Mm-hmm.
what they call as, espionage.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with this evolution, like you see, earlier, it was more about protecting your systems only from, let's say, computer viruses. So all we could
Mm-hmm.
think about, making sure your passwords are strong, your systems are patched. You needed
Mm-hmm.
antivirus, and which made sense in earlier setups. Now we are in a diverse world where, AI is already there. We have IoT devices, we have
Mm-hmm.
wireless systems, we have smartphones, everything is connected. So your data is kind of flowing between all these various systems all
Yeah.
the time.
Mm.
A person who is sitting remote somewhere in, let's say, a different country,
Mm-hmm.
across the globe, he can access your data. If your systems are not configured,
Mm.
obviously it's a huge risk,
Mm-hmm.
right? So,
Indeed.
indeed, yeah. And then that's where I think it is challenging, the emerging threats where the technology has evolved, but at the same time, cybersecurity best practices, cybersecurity frameworks, they are still
Mm-hmm.
the same. And that's where cybersecurity professionals, organizations, they are catching up. The old traditional methods, they don't work any longer.
Mm.
Like if you want to counter the threats posed
Mm-hmm.
by artificial intelligence, you need
Yeah.
something, very proactive, something, where it can be more
Mm-hmm.
defensive in nature. So that's like one of the challenges. And just to add to that, last week there was news in the media where a Hong Kong company, they transferred almost $25 million to somebody who was on the other side, and he was impersonating somebody's ID using his
Wow.
video cloning, what they call as deepfake. So these
Yeah.
incidents are already happening. So now how do you deal with that, right? So it is
Yeah.
challenge. So this was in relation to emerging threats.
Well, that was pretty much insightful, and I didn't know that much about it. So yeah. And my next question is on cybersecurity strategies for the businesses. So, given your extensive experience in cybersecurity, so what strategies would you recommend that business should implement to fortify their digital infrastructure against the increasing sophistication of cyber attacks?
Um, Number one, before building strategy, it is very important for organizations to ensure that their leadership, the company board of directors, company C-suite, all of them, they are engaged actively in building security programs. They morally or financially support these initiatives, and they play a significant role in building
Mm-hmm.
security culture within the organizations, because information security cannot be just your processes and tools. People play key role, and that messaging, if it comes from the top leadership, it brings in great impact. Now, coming back to the strategy that organizations can adopt, what do you call today, a 360 degrees cybersecurity?
Mm-hmm.
That means, you look at all the aspects. So you need to have strong policies, strong procedures, strong frameworks, strong regulatory posture, strong risk assessment. You should have strong, let's say, auditing teams, red teams. You need to secure your software areas. You need to make sure that data privacy is
Mm-hmm.
taken care of, whoever is
Mm-hmm.
involved. So in
Mm-hmm.
essentially, you need to see the entire data life cycle and see that data is protected at every stage, when you collect data, when you share, when you use the data, even when you dispose data.
Yeah.
The other thing, there are emerging threats, there are threat actors. So
Mm-hmm.
your threat intelligence is extremely important. You cannot be just relying on, these news articles and advisories to tell you that there is a certain risk, and
Mm-hmm.
mitigate that risk in certain way. No, it's not going to work that way, right? You need to be two steps ahead of your enemies, or your these malicious actors. So what it means that, you have your threat intelligence sources. You should know that,
Yeah.
what's out there as an active threat, what controls, what measures you can do to stop those. If there is, for
Mm-hmm.
example, a virus, let's say ransomware,
Mm-hmm.
which is out there. So you
Yeah.
should have that strong network, community, forums,
Mm-hmm.
advisories, right channels where you can get this, the right solutions. And also, there is something called as zero trust strategy, or zero trust
Mm-hmm.
access control. Now, what it
Mm-hmm.
means is that you do not trust anybody, in the sense that you verify everybody's identity in terms of their device,
Mm-hmm.
their IDs, before granting them any access to your critical information.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be somebody who is your employee, it could be your contractor, as well as it could be your customers, or it could be somebody who is just accessing your website, or accessing your network over the internet. So these are very, very high level. The topic is, quite vast, but then these
Yeah.
are very, very high level areas to touch upon on this topic.
Indeed, I mean, this is such a vast, the discussion can just go on and on and on. And certainly you have, so much about it. You have the expertise and the brilliance to just, So I mean, thank you for, summing it up in these a fixed number of words. So, as we know, Mr. Kamane, that AI, artificial intelligence, it's pretty much everywhere, and it's playing a huge role across various sectors. So, how about the role of AI, artificial intelligence, in cybersecurity, and how is that going to shape the future of cybersecurity, both in terms of enhancing security measures and in the creation of new types of cyber threats?
So recently I published an article on LinkedIn, and the theme was that does AI fit into, your standard
Mm-hmm.
people, uh, process and technology framework.
Mm-hmm.
My idea was that, traditionally, when it comes to cyber crimes, risk, or threats,
Mm-hmm.
we have kind of, categorized everything into three areas. Like it could come from people, it could be, violation of your processes, or it
Mm-hmm.
could be a technology, resulting in cyber threats.
Yeah.
Now, AI is, something where it has its own learning mechanism, it has its own
Mm.
feedback mechanism, so it's really difficult to quantify or qualify it into, one of these three categories. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is that AI as a threat,
Mm-hmm.
it's to great extent it's unknown, because the technology definitely has vast potential, right? It can be used for
Mm-hmm.
a lot of good applications, including healthcare benefits and all other content management and all these areas that we have already been seeing. But at the same time, it can be used to generate cyber attacks. Like it can write its own phishing templates in seconds, and then you can use it to scam people. It can be actively used in voice cloning. It can be used in video cloning. So it's a piece of technology which can be misused, with the wrong intent. The second thing is that, when it comes to data privacy, artificial intelligence can have its own biases. That's something, which is kind of, recently discovered, that based on the data which is fed to the AI, its algorithms can be biased.
Yeah.
So it's another data privacy risk that we are seeing. But at the same time, thankfully, a lot of nations, a lot of regulatory
Mm-hmm.
bodies, they have taken note of these AI challenges and AI risks. So recently in Europe, they have passed a regulation called ISO
Mm-hmm.
42001. Now, this regulation talks about, how do you tackle AI challenges? If you are using AI systems, you need to
Mm-hmm.
understand the AI bias, AI impact, AI inventory. You need to see its impact on business. If, the AI decision making is improper, what if AI is used for non-ethical activities? So, though it is challenging, because it is emerging area, it probably will take its own time to kind of settle and further stabilize. But hopefully this issue would be under control in few years, and this seems to be on radar for most of the cybersecurity professional, and which is a good thing, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, as long as there are solutions, it's a really good thing. So, and it's very interesting. A lot of people are nowadays, worried about their personal data protection. So, with the growing concern over this topic, over this issue, personal data breaches, so what measures should individuals take to safeguard their online presence and their sensitive information?
Right. I mean, if you refer to our nation, India, uh, our challenge has been, privacy as a culture really did not exist. I mean, forget about data privacy, but in general, privacy as a culture, did not exist. Whereas in other, regions or countries, privacy was accepted as a norm or as a fundamental right for individuals long back. Like, for example, in Europe, GDPR existed, you know, long ago, and then uh, it keeps evolving, and there are fundamental rights, with the legal backing, which is provided to all these individuals. Now, coming back to India, talking about data privacy, the act has been recently passed, finally, right? So it
Wow.
was few months back when India passed its act called DPDPA.
Mhm.
Um, Now, the guidelines around that act, I mean, even though we have access to the verbiage in the act, the implementation guidelines have still not been released on how organizations would comply. But in the meantime, as an individual, let's say, forget about the organizations, right? As an individual, uh, what we lack most is the education. You must have seen that, these days the education around cybersecurity has, picked up a lot. You always see these messages from government and other bodies talking about not sharing your passwords, pins, UPI, transaction IDs, and all that information. But tomorrow, if you ask, any common citizen, what does personal data mean to them? What does private data mean to them? So that definition is not clear. How many of us know that, my Aadhaar data, my driving license data, my name, my email ID, my
Hmm.
location, my fingerprints, my political
Hmm.
opinions,
Hmm.
all of this data is private because that data can be used to identify me. That
Yeah.
data can be used against me. Somebody can,
Hmm.
steal my, ID and impersonate that, and it can lead to serious, serious crimes, right? So what
Yeah.
we need is education. Number two, when individuals share their private data, right? Like when somebody is collecting your personal information, how many times we ask, the purpose or the intent why it is collected? How many times we ask that, let's say a bank is collecting your information, right, today? So, how many of us really ask them that, are you sharing this information with the right parties? Are you destroying this information in the way that, it cannot be recovered? So, as an individuals, we are still not aware of our rights. What if somebody is misusing data or personal data? Where do we report? So even though the legislation has been rolled out, what is missing is the education for the common citizens, and that needs to pick up really, good pace. Because unless that is done, individuals will not know their privacy rights. They will not, go after organizations or any data processing entities which
Hmm.
misuse their data. So I would say education should be the key around privacy and individual rights.
Certainly, certainly. So, since we have already, you have pointed out education and creating an awareness that, individuals should be aware of their rights in terms of their data protection. So, my question is that, as somebody who's deeply involved in cybersecurity field, so what initiatives or approaches do you believe are the most effective in raising cybersecurity awareness within organizations?
There are multiple initiatives and organizations, honestly, they have been making good efforts. I have spent a lot of time in banking, healthcare industries, IT industries, and I do see that at least there are some awareness programs, initiatives being rolled out in terms of, cybersecurity, data protection, best practices, do's and don'ts. Now, what is important is that the content that you develop for education to people, it has to be number one, relevant, right? It should align to your policies. Number three, it should be engaging. Because let's say if you are into non-cybersecurity role, if you're a salesperson, if you're, a HR or a finance guy, you may not understand all the cybersecurity jargon and, language and terminologies. So you need some help, right? So the education that would be given in terms of cybersecurity best practices, it has to be easy to understand. There should be clearly laid out, risk scenarios, incidents, the data breaches that you hear about. They should be used as an anecdote or examples, analogies in the form of storytelling, right? Number two, this education cannot be one time because all of us kind of, tend to forget because every day there is kind of, new content, new story. So it's very important that this knowledge is refreshed because there are emerging threats, new challenges keep repeating. It doesn't have to be in the same form. It could be, email advisories. It could be in-person session. It could be awareness contest. It could be gamification. It could be
Mm-hmm.
short movies. So I have kind of, experimented a lot in this area. There are lots and lots of, ideas around this. It's a big topic, but in short, it should be engaging, it should be relevant, and it should be regular. Uh, Cybersecurity awareness. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite informative, and that was wonderful, Mr. Kamane. And I had so much, I gained so much from this session, and I'm sure that the audiences watching us would be gaining quite a lot as well. So thank you so much for being with us, and
Thank you.
enlightening us with your brilliant knowledge, and making this so informative for all of us.
Thank you so much. I was kind of, happy to be part of this, and thank you so much for, inviting me here. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So guys, so this was such a great session with Mr. Santosh Kamane, and there is going to be many, many more. So stay tuned and wait for the next episodes. They are going to be as interesting as well. So don't forget to subscribe and follow us so that you have more of such content coming your way.